Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of Look Forward. I'm your host, Jay. I'm here with my co-host, Brad. This is a very weird thing for me to just look at your face. I'm sorry. Let me start over. This is like kind of freaking me out a little bit.
So it's funny because the listeners don't know this. This is take 5 of the intro to this week's podcast because we've had just the hella technical issues with that recording software.
It's not my fault. It's Brad's fault.
You know what? I will accept the blame. I'm not a Republican in 2025, so I will gladly accept blame for things that may or may not be my responsibility, but they seem to happen around me. So I will take it. I will say it would be very cool of the universe knowing what we have to deal with in the next 5 days, if the universe could have given us a nice glide path into the inauguration.
Nah.
Instead, they were like, what if we have a historic disaster in the most populated area in the entire country? What would that do for you?
That would allow one particular political party to try desperately to score points in the shittiest way possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this happening in California, these wildfires in California are sad, obviously, in the most obvious of ways. People losing their homes. Unfortunately, James Woods' house didn't burn down. So, that's
Mel
Gibson's did.
So, one out of two.
Shout out to the GOAT, God, I guess, the great Smiter, and so like these wildfires are a fucking hell of a thing. It's really horrible. I hope everybody is okay if you're in those areas. I really, we're hoping you're all right, whatever your political party is. Quite seriously, but what is interesting to me is, it tells me exactly what we have been saying for a number of months. Americans voted back in a guy, because they have goldfish brains. And amongst other parts of their brains that are bad. But this particular thing, the California wildfires, is so emblematic of that goldfish-minded nonsense that drives everybody on the left especially absolutely bonkers. Because the Republicans are now doing the thing that they said Democrats were doing in the wake of the storms on the East Coast, in the Southeast. They're literally saying we're going to hold back money to help disaster relief. We're gonna try to force people to do what we want them to do. In the wake of this, like, basically California needs to change its ways, whatever the shit that means. Well,
they're a failed state, Jay. Don't you know? I mean, California, if it as we've mentioned many times before on the show, if California were its own country, separate and apart from the United States, it would have the 5th largest GDP in the world. That means it would have a GDP, just the state of California, higher than all but 4 countries in the world. But somehow it's a failed state, Jay, and we need to, they need to change their ways to get some of that federal dollars. Never mind also the fact that California contributes to the federal bottom line 5 times more than it takes in of federal dollars. Of course. We need to make sure that we're, that we're putting conditions on this aid that we, potentially would be kicking over them. It literally makes me fucking sick. Because to your point, like, this is the shit that they say, oh, like, this is what Democrats. No, Democrats just fucking be like, yeah, what do you need? We got you. Yeah, we're not gonna fucking play.
Right. I don't have to like you.
Yeah.
Just all I have to do is help you because you are a part of the country. You're my fellow countryman. Right. And it's weird, right? It's so weird that Republicans were so up in arms. The idea of denying people support from the federal government level when there's a natural disaster. you don't hear shit from these same people now. Oh, well, I mean, we got to figure out how to stop DEI and CRT and helping poor people or whatever thing we got to bring to heal in this lawless state of California so that they can get their proper federal relief. I got to tell you, if I'm Gavin Newsom, and it's clear, by the way, if it hasn't been already clear to you, my boy is running in 2028. Like he is, this is his moment. He's like, oh, you want to play games? Let's play games, right? So if I was Gavin Newsom, I'd be like, that's cool. So should we just not give federal dollars back to, like, should we just not do that? Because if you're denying us, like you said, if we're putting in 5 times the amount in federal dollars are going to the national pot, why should we do it? Because that national pot is there so that in case shit goes awry, leave a penny, take a penny situation, right? Like that's
not if shit goes awry. All these fucking red states who can't sustain themselves financially.
On a day-to-day basis.
Like are literally being fucking what's the word? Subsidized by the state of California. And their elected officials have the fucking gall to come out here and be like, well, like Tommy Tuberville's like, we gotta, I don't know, we gotta look at how things are going over there before we decide to give that money. I wonder how many more federal dollars Alabama takes than it takes in. Probably pretty high.
It's probably 3-1, 5-1, or something like that.
Well, and here's the thing that really pisses me off about this. So, like, I've really had a hard time watching this situation over the last week because typically when you have a natural disaster like this, right, it lasts like the disaster lasts for a day or two. Like, there's been wildfires in California before that's lasted for multiple days, but typically it hasn't like gone into urban areas to this scale as these have. So typically, like, when you have a disaster, like, it lasts for a day or two, right? And it's really fucking tragic. But then, like, the recovery starts immediately, right? And so you pivot from, like, holy shit, look at this terrible thing that happened, to, all right, let's fucking build it back and let's make it better than it was before and help all these people and blah, blah, blah. Because this has been going on for a week plus now, the way that we're currently recording on Wednesday, the 15th, it's just continuing devastation. Like, the fire keeps spreading because they're dealing with high winds right now out there in California. It's continuing to make it hard to beat it back, to sustain it. I mean, thousands of homes, businesses, churches, property of all kinds, just destroyed. Like, so many people that have been in that area. Like we have a friend, the friend of the show, James Ryan, formerly of the Flawedcast Network, which was Andy's old podcast network that he did like wrestling shows for. His parents lost their whole home, like their whole home fucking burned to the ground. Yeah. And like, that's like insane. And like, if you know anyone that lives like in the LA area, it's probably not a lot of degrees of separation between, you knowing someone who is literally personally impacted by this. And as me, like someone who's sitting on the fucking East Coast of the country, I'm just watching this shit unfold. Fucking devastating. Like, seeing, and a lot of the people that I follow on like social media and stuff like that are, live out in that area or in the entertainment industry, and, you see it all from them. And it's just like, what do you do? Like I've done the typical liberal elite thing and just, thrown some money. Like, I know James's cousin set up a GoFundMe, for his parents. I've, donated some money to that. I've donated some money to causes to, provide meals for like firefighters that are fighting, the fires out there and stuff like that. But it's just like, what the fuck else can I do? You know what I mean? Like, it's like, you feel
not much.
Yeah. You feel you're just watching this shit unfold and you're just like, fuck.
Yeah. And by the way, so we can have just kind of a clear thought on this. This has burned about 40,000 acres so far. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting, right? And I'm trying not to make this political, just because I think it is a thing that you should just, across the board have, sadness for and things like that. But this is a political show. So, we do have to talk about the political ramifications. It is interesting to watch the right say, oh, well, this is 40,000 acres. This is unprecedented. And it is unprecedented for California. That's true, right? It's a pretty huge wildfire. And they're like, oh my God, the amount of acres, the amount of damage. Oh my God, like this is unacceptable. We need to get rid of the mayor of Los Angeles.
Yeah, it's all California's fault. It's all Los Angeles' fault. It's all Karen Bass's fault. Like it's everyone's fault. Everyone, like Gavin Newsom fucked up. Like, you know, they
only had one firefighter in the whole fucking state. Like that's all they funded. You know, it's like it's fundamentally not true, but okay. But it's interesting, right? Because it wasn't that long ago that the Smokehouse Creek fire began, right? This was in February of 2024. That burned a significant amount of 1 million acres in Texas. I don't recall people being like, Greg Abbott needs to be removed from office. The fire surpassed its previous record of the East Amarillo complex fire of 2006 that scorched 900,000 acres. Again, I don't recall Democrats saying we need to get rid of all of these politicians in this area. Instead, it was these are massive tragedies. We should help them because they live in the country.
Yeah.
Right. I cannot help but think what this looks like in the wake of, like, in 5 days. What is Congress going to do? What is the president going to do?
We're already getting signaling of what Congress is going to do. Like, you have the fucking Speaker of the House out here not saying that we need to put conditions on the aid as far as, like, we need to make California change, like, how they're governing, which, by the way, yay federalism. Like, we love that argument. But what Mike Johnson is saying is that, okay, like, if you guys want aid to if you want us to pass aid to California, we're going to tie that into this other bill that to raise, like, the debt ceiling, for example, or to fund aspects of the government or stuff like that.
Right.
Instead of just passing a clean bill for aid, which is what you should do, which is what Democrats would do in this situation, or not even Democrats, which is what responsible legislators would do in this situation. Right. Instead, you're going to try to condition it with other stuff that you want to get passed to try to get Democratic votes to pass that, because you know that if Mike Johnson has to rely on just his caucus to pass the bill, he'll never be able to make it happen. Because the Republican caucus is dysfunctional in the House.
Yeah, I'm curious as to what people think is going to happen, right? Like, I am well aware that they're gonna act like assholes here, but I'm wondering, what does the average American think, right? Like, what is, like, yeah, we're we mainline this crazy shit into our minds every week because we're gluttons for punishment, but when this shit pops off in 5 days, what does the average Joe go, wait, they're not sending money to California? Like, what the fuck? Like, that's kind of weird, right?
Yeah.
Like, because there's conservatives in California. Like, you can pretend like California's all, latte sipping liberals or whatever, but there's more Republicans in California than there are in Texas.
No,
right?
That's not true. But there's more Republicans in California than in any state but Texas.
I thought, or maybe it's the other way, that there's more Democrats, or there's some aspect of, like, there's actually far more just because of just the sheer population.
California typically, in most presidential elections, has the second highest quantity of raw votes.
Okay, second
for the Republican candidate.
I mean that
behind Texas,
right?
Is how that typically works.
Right. So, and I have to imagine it's not that different. Like,
no, it's
those
pretty,
numbers are not like
pretty fucking close.
It's pretty close. Right. So, but the point here being, those people are affected too, right? Like, are you just going to, like, all right, we're going to send it to, like, part of the Palisades, not the other side? Like, which one likes lattes more? Like, that's where we'll send our funding, right? So those people are going to be affected. And it's going to be, look, I'm sure that the liberal folks there, the vast majority of Californians, are well aware that they're going to be a target for this bullshit, right? Like, that's clear. You just watch the news for 2 seconds. But I'm very interested to see what the reaction is from conservatives there, because this is the first of many fuck around and find out situations that you are going to get hurt because you are just in the wake of their hatred, right? You're just in the wake of it. And what it tells me is if they're willing to do this, what happens in some other states, right? Like what happens if in the mid-Atlantic, you have really bad snowstorms that happen and just destroy a bunch of shit, or, whatever, you get some hurricanes that may come through there or something like that. It's 100% possible. What happens then, right? Like this idea of, are you going to continue? I mean, I ultimately know the answer, which is you're going to continue with your rhetoric when it's convenient for you and then turn off when it's not convenient to your narrative. But eventually this starts to hurt you and it starts to hurt your own team. And I'm fucking curious what happens in 5 days where people are like, hey, wait a minute. Like, what happened to the federal funding? What federal funding? You're not getting any, or you're getting very little.
Well, and they're going to get, I mean, they're going to get some, right? So like FEMA exists apart from Congress. Like FEMA is an executive branch function, and Biden is already, Biden's already throwing money out there.
Yes.
But that,
Biden is,
that tap might turn off, in a couple days when this shit goes down.
I think Might is Might is doing a whole lot of heavy lifting there. I think 100% it does. I think they fucked him. Day one, click, nope, change these things. I guarantee you they will. And Gavin Newsom is not going to budge.
Well, and you remember too, like the last time Trump was in office, when during Florida or California's wildfire season, when they needed money, what was the question that he asked? Well, I don't want to help them, until it was pointed out to him that, like the part of the state that this affects is actually like your people. And he's like, oh, okay, well then, we'll give them a hand. That's fine.
But I mean, here's the thing. This has already affected 12,000 on average, 12,300 structures. Like that's not all conservatives and that's not all liberal. So
no, in fact, considering the part of town that's been hit with this, probably a lot of conservatives, in all honesty.
Right. So it'll be interesting. I'm very interested to see what he does. So the economic impact so far is about $275 billion.
And here's another interesting fact, like to just understand like the amount of people who are in the Los Angeles area, in Los Angeles County. Los Angeles County, one county in California, happens to be the most populated county in the country. But Los Angeles County has a higher population than 40 separate states in this country. Like literally more people live in LA County than in 40 of the 50 states. It's something stupid like that. Like the smallest state that has a population larger than LA County, I think, is Ohio. I think that's the smallest state that has a population larger than that of LA County. So every state's smaller in population than Ohio, including the one that I fucking live in, has less people living in it than there is in Los Angeles County.
Yeah. No, it's there's mad people there. This is absolutely nuts.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's the way the right is dealing with this tells you the type of monsters they are. And it's only going to get worse because it's not like climate change is going to fucking slow down, right? And it's not going to just happen to conservative states. It's going to happen to blue states as well. So it'll be interesting that they're going to have this dynamic of like, nah, we're just not going to fucking help them. Like, let's try out this method. Like,
and look, right, like you and I have been kind of banging this drum over the past several weeks of like people got to feel some pain. People got to suffer. I am willing to also, continue that fucking spirit into the Trump term. I draw the line with that spirit when it comes to shit like natural disasters.
That's not anybody's fault.
I'm not saying that like if a fucking hurricane hits Florida and wipes out like the fucking peninsula, right? Like we shouldn't be helping.
Yeah, you did that.
Yeah.
Like, no, that's a different story. No, I don't blame people's votes for that. I blame God, obviously.
As should they, if they believe in him.
You can write it off on your insurance.
And look, even Democrats are out here like, look, like we're not trying to do this like tit for tat shit. Like we as Democrats, like if we get back in power, are not going to fucking play this game with
they never have.
Yeah.
But the thing is, they never have. And you can say whatever you want about these good Christian men and women in the Republican Party. This is the least fucking Christian thing you could do. Like, isn't help thy neighbor like kind of one of the big ones? It's not like in the 10 Commandments, but it's like number 11, right? Like it should be up there. After like don't touch my stuff.
That's like famously in the Bible, line 1, don't touch my stuff. Line 2, don't help thy neighbor. Like,
what is it? Isn't it? Don't covet thy neighbor's wife. Yeah, that's don't touch my stuff. Like it's the same. But yeah, I'm just curious. I'm just curious as to what conservative Californians are going to think when this falls on their heads. And I was listening. I was scrolling TikTok as we come towards the bitter end with our favorite app. Right. And I did see a funny, so many people, especially if you're on TikTok, probably know who Destiny is. Steven, I don't know what his last name is, but like liberal commenter, often finds himself in like debate scenarios and stuff like that. And he said something very professional debater.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much that's what he is at this point. And he said something very funny that I'm like this is an obvious joke, but it's also like probably very true. Like if Trump came out tomorrow and was like, I think that we should probably lift the laws on having sex with minors, and we should make it legal to have sex with minors. The next day, you'd have Republicans being like, "Well, the birth rates are real low in the country right now," try to rationalize it into it.
I mean, last time I checked, which party keeps defending child marriage laws?
Yeah,
it's not Democrats.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure no matter what the Republicans do in this situation, whatever Trump says, like even if your fucking house burned down, and if he decides to not give you aid, they'll be like, "Fuck yeah, brother!" Like that's I don't need somebody.
I don't need somebody pulling me up by my bootstraps.
That's right. We got to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps,
bro. Like your boots and said straps burned in a fire. Damn it! What am I gonna do?
And
this somehow it's still also government fault.
And by the way, something that we are not talking about enough that people are, and I understand why, because we're still like right in the thick of this shit. So I fucking get it. Like, stuff's going to get lost. If there is nothing that should underscore the housing crisis that we're in as a nation, like this is fucking it right here. Cause you're about to have thousands of people displaced out of their homes that don't have a home to go back to. And in the wake of that, you have fucking landlords jacking up like rent prices around like in the surrounding areas. Like there's never been a tragedy that, that fucking capitalists have never been able to take advantage of.
Yeah.
And so like when we talk about like the fact that we have a major housing issue in this country, like this is part of it. And the solution, as Kamala Harris was running on, but no one bothered to fucking listen because people don't appreciate problems until we're, 10 miles past them. And we're just like, oh, fuck, now what do we do?
So your house is quite literally
is to build like, hey, we need to build a shitload of affordable housing. Not like these pop-up developments of brand new houses that cost, fucking, $800,000 in an area where shit usually costs $3 and stuff like that. Like, no, we need to fucking build housing that people can actually fucking afford and build a lot of it.
Yeah.
But we're not focused on that right now.
I mean, but here's the thing, Brad. Eggs are very expensive. That's all I got for you.
It's true. They are.
Expensive. Hey, spoiler, they're about to get more expensive. Don't worry about it, guys.
Yeah.
You'll be fine. You dumb bastard.
Yeah. I mean, for fuck's sake, like James Woods thought his house burned down and people rightfully gave him shit online and we're just like, oh, like, I guess we believe in climate change now. And he still fucking comes out and was like, no, fuck you. Like, this has nothing to do with climate change, blah, blah, blah. Like, forget the fact that we're seeing historic droughts in California year after year, which is the thing that's directly leading to the severity of these fires, because the fucking trees are so dry, the forests are so dry that it makes it really easy for this shit to spread. But no. Don't blame the shit that's happening right in front of our fucking eyes. Because, you know, we don't want to have to blame that, because we want to still be able to fucking mine for coal and oil and natural gas and all this other bullshit.
I mean, look, here's the reality. Joe Rogan is now literally out there saying that homeless people lit these fires. That's the new right-wing bullshit. Is that it's homeless people, because of all the things, let's ignore, like you said, let's ignore all the climate change obvious situations. And the best thing we can think to do is blame poor people. That's like, okay, this is what we're doing.
Try a tried and true strategy.
It does work.
Never fails.
Yeah, the homeless did it. Why? Like, why would they do that? Why would they do that? So everyone else doesn't have a home? Okay. Like, all right, that feels like an odd choice, but sure. All right, let's jump into news you need. Israel and Hamas agree to a ceasefire, Brad.
Yeah. Curious timing.
Cough, cough, Reagan. Any historical sort of context that you want to think about? Look, if you don't know, Ronald Reagan pulled the same bullshit on Jimmy Carter when he ran for president. So,
I think I have an interesting opinion on this.
It's a hot take, Brad.
I don't necessarily think that this is specifically because of Trump backchanneling.
No, you don't think so?
No, I really don't. I think that Netanyahu held out as long as he did to get Trump to help use it as an issue to get Trump elected potentially, because he thought that he could get a better deal from Trump. Like, he thought Trump would kind of let him have carte blanche. Then once Trump won the election, Trump basically publicly and probably privately as well, I would imagine, reinforced the deal that the Biden administration has been offering you, like, that's pretty much the same deal that we're going to go with as well. And I think Netanyahu realized he wasn't going to get a better deal from Trump, so you might as well hold off. If he was specifically trying to help Trump, I think he would have waited until after Trump was in office to do this.
Yeah, but at this point, I don't think it really matters, right? Like, he's already won the election.
I think it matters insofar as, like, Trump could take a victory lap over it if, like, 2 months from now there's a ceasefire and he's like, I did it. It was all I mean, he's already doing that anyway. Don't get me wrong.
Like, so I mean, here's the thing. He's gonna take that victory lap.
Right.
It could have happened the day before the election.
Right.
He would have been like, you're welcome. Like, okay, like, what the fuck?
But meanwhile, it did.
I did it.
Meanwhile, it did lead to a fun moment during the press conference today where Biden was talking about this, flanked by Harris and Tony Blinken. And as he was walking out, a reporter asked him, he's like, who deserves the credit for this? He's like, you were Donald Trump. And he turned around, he's like, is that a joke? And he just fucking nodded his head.
Fucking out of here. I'm doing real work. I'm 112 years old, but I'm still working. Yeah, look, I think you're probably largely right.
Mm-hmm.
I think that still fundamentally, Netanyahu was never going to give up anything unless Harris had won. Like, I think that's if Harris had won and you'd be like, all right, well, fuck, we gotta do something now. But now that it's Trump, he's like, all right, well, let's see. And then, like you said, you're getting the same deal. Shit's not changing. All right, what can I do? I got to strike a deal here. We can't just have this shit go on forever. But I think he absolutely held out for political reasons. I don't think it has anything, and I'm sure that's your point too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's obvious, and I think it's obvious, especially if you're remotely paying attention and you know anything about who Benjamin Netanyahu is. He's a piece of shit. Like, he's a piece of shit. And I'm glad to think that at some point the Israelis will go, enough. I don't know when that is going to be. Frankly, it's not soon enough. It feels like he's been there for a million fucking years, and he has made it only exponentially worse. But yeah, no, I think seeking the end of the conflict was solely predicated on who was president.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's all.
Now,
that's all it is.
Now that being said, to talk about the actual substance of the agreement, this should be celebrated. It'll be interesting to see what, if anything, this actually changes in the region right now, aside from the fact that there won't be constant bombings in Gaza and shit like that. Because while Benjamin Netanyahu is a massive piece of shit and has, really underscored that point, he has a lot of people in his cabinet, a lot of his ministers who also have really shown themselves to be massive pieces of shit, like Smotrich and Ben-Gvir and guys like that. Mm-hmm. So, and those guys aren't going anywhere, even if something were to happen to Netanyahu. So,
yeah. No, I mean, top down, that entire cabinet, I don't know what the proper term is in Israel, needs to go. Like, it just needs to go. Look, I get the idea of having sort of a hawkish group of guys there, because you're under this thought process that you got to stick it to the Palestinians, otherwise they're going to get out of control. I'm not saying that I agree with that. I just can understand their mindset, right?
Yeah.
Again, I don't agree with it, but I understand their mindset in that. The problem is they're making this same shit thought process that the U.S. did going into Iraq, which is, we're going to bomb and shoot these people until they love us.
By the way, it had the exact same fucking effect. Like, if you think that Hamas has been drastically impacted by this, Tony Blinken came out just a couple days ago, actually, talking about kind of like in his sort of end of term address, like about the State Department, was talking about this conflict. And he fucking straight up said, like, Hamas has pretty much recruited as many new members as they've lost, like, military combatants throughout the fucking length of this conflict. Right. To which I say, yeah, no fucking shit. Like, it turns out, like, when you have someone that's just bombing and killing and attacking your citizens with impunity, it's going to radicalize the fuck out of a lot of people that are living in that region. And they're going to be like, man, I don't really like Hamas, but they're the only ones that are fighting back against these fucking assholes. And that's how you perpetuate these groups, maintaining this power hold in these areas. To your point, the exact same fucking thing happened when the U.S. invaded Iraq.
Yeah, I mean, this idea that you're going to win, like, a war on terrorism is
by out terrorizing the terrorists.
Right. And David Cross, comedian David Cross has a great joke about that. He's like, a war on terrorism is the same as a war on jealousy. You cannot win it. Like, it's just, you cannot beat people by, like, hey, you guys are bad, we're going to bomb the shit out of you. Well, the kid who loses their dad or their mom or their brother or sister, all they see is that those guys killed my family. Mm. Immediately radicalized. Like, you can't tell them anything else. Well, geopolitically, this is the way I'm 11 years old, dude, and they gave me an AK-47 to kill you. Like, that's all I hear, and that's all I want to do.
I take it Benjamin Netanyahu did not watch season 1 of Jack Ryan. This literally happens in the fucking Jack Ryan show.
Yeah, that's why that dude became a bad guy. He got fucking radicalized as a kid, right? And it's like, it just simply, because that is the way it works. The way that you actually beat these guys is, like, I hate to say it, and I don't understand why America, of all places, didn't do this. Bro, you just Coca-Cola them, right? You just out culture them, right? And you're like, oh, you don't think that gay people should exist or women should drive or whatever? You just go and you just drop leaflets and pornography, and then you just let that country deal with it, and you come back in 20 years and you see what happens. It'll work itself out, right? But you don't send bombs and guns, because when you do that, all you're doing is people go, oh, now it's us versus them. Dude, beat them culturally. Mm-hmm. Hey, you think fucking everybody should be tamped down and can't have any freedom? More freedom, more freedom, more freedom. Like, that's just what you do. You freedom fries these motherfuckers until they're like, all right. we agree they're also delicious. Like you just that's how you beat them, right? Like you cannot beat them based on just shooting them to like you can't shoot their anger out of them. You just can't. It is, we've tried.
We literally beat the shit out of Eastern European communism by doing this. Like combine fucking incompetent economic management on their side with fucking sunshine and rainbows over here. And they're just like, man, I think we're playing for the wrong fucking team. I got to tell you, like the citizens will take care of it.
Have you listened to rock and roll? We got it all the time, baby. It's on the radio 24 hours a day. Check this shit out. And then eventually people are like, I don't want to fucking do that dance where we're like on our knees and kicking up. Like we want to listen to rock and roll. We want to do something else. And that shit, and that's what Russians hate. Like that's what Putin hates, is that American culture just permeates the world. And it does. It is unbeatable, right? I heard a really funny fucking story the other day. I think it was Bill Burr was telling this story, right? He was saying that he was watching a documentary on World War II, and like how basically the U.S. did not have superior tech than the Germans. Like the Nazis, they just didn't, right? Like the U.S. machine guns would overheat. And so like when American soldiers killed German soldiers, they would drop the American machine guns and take the German ones because they didn't overheat, right? They were just more efficient. And like their tanks were more efficient and basically better than the U.S. tanks. But they did an interview with this like German soldier or German like historian or something like that. And they were like, well, then how did the U.S. beat the Germans, right? And he was like, well, the problem was like for every 4 tanks that the Germans had, America had 5. So even though they weren't superior, they just basically McDonald's them. They were just like, we could just make more of them.
Right.
Like, so just do that.
Yeah, goddamn, they took all of their fucking internal manufacturing and just turned it into a fucking war machine. Like, how are we supposed to compete with that?
You can't. And culturally, that's what America is, right? Like, we are so powerful. If we stop with the bullshit of spending so much money on weapons of warfare to destroy things, dude, you got a repressive regime? Have you seen the Jersey Shore? We're going to be broadcasting that live.
I mean,
beat them over the head with the culture, dude.
I mean, it's insane how prescient the fucking quote from 80 years ago now, 70 years ago, with Eisenhower talking to Congress, where he's like, "Hey, like, if you're not going to fund the State Department, then you better up my military budget because if we can't exercise diplomacy, then we're going to spend a lot more money going to war on shit."
Yeah, they took that as like a direct thing that he wanted. It was like, no, dude,
that's not what I'm saying.
I was trying to make a point. They're like, no.
And this is a guy who was a fucking general. Like he was right. Fucking king shit during World War II. He literally became the president. That's how fucking good he was during World War II. And he's just like, diplomacy, motherfuckers. Like, have you heard of it?
Right. And they were like, we have not. Have you seen these new tanks? Check out these jets. This shit is awesome, right? It's like I feel like you guys have really missed the whole point of that big old speech I gave. But like if you're going to defeat this shit, you have to defeat it from a cultural perspective. You just cannot defeat it by
especially in a war that you're not that you don't have boots on the ground in. Like especially if you're trying to influence things from afar, like you need to just
yeah, absolutely. Now, I mean, the problem is the American cultural authority has waned so much because of what is happening inside the U.S. and what we do abroad, right? It's hard to say our culture is quote unquote superior. And by the way, I don't think our culture is superior necessarily. I'm just saying, like, if that's how you want to beat them, America has got a culture that will just saturate an area. It just will. Like, it just has that ability, right? Because it's largely, before Republicans fuck it up in 5 days, it's largely about more freedom. Everybody wants more freedom. Everybody wants to be able to do what they want within the confines of like being reasonable, but everybody wants it. Everybody wants to wear shorts and listen to rock and roll versus, a repressive regime where you're like, you can listen to this like loud humming noise and wear, jet black full body suits in fucking 9,000 degree desert temperatures. Nobody really wants that. That's an oppressive regime. Oh, the women there want it. The fuck they do. Okay. They don't. All right. Here's how I know, because the guys don't wear it. Okay, they don't wear it. They're like, oh, well, light pants, baby, like white. It's hot out here.
I mean,
right?
but again, like, and Israel specifically, like, made this happen because, you know, Netanyahu famously gave money to Hamas because he wanted to keep them in charge because he knew that they were a useful adversary for him.
Yeah. It wasn't a happenstance. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Hey, you guys still mad? Cool. Here's more money.
Yeah. Stay mad.
Stay mad. Like, this helps me and you. By the way, I'm going to kill a bunch of your people. By the way, experts are saying that 90% of the Gaza Strip has been displaced. 90%. All right, guys, what the fuck are we doing? Absolutely insane. All right, let's talk about Pete Hegseth.
Oh boy. Got to tell you, like you know,
him and I are the same age. Weird.
Yeah, yes.
I should be Secretary of Defense.
It felt like, you know how people will be like, it's like putting on a warm blanket, like getting some like nostalgia shit like that. In this case, like watching the Hegseth confirmation hearing or seeing like the highlights from it is like putting on like a warm like blanket that you remember, except that the blanket's been sitting in like a pile of manure for the last 4 years and it just like fucking stinks and sucks ass.
Yes.
So we got a classic Trump era committee hearing for the Hegseth nomination, and I mean that in all the worst ways possible. Look, credit where it's due. Credit where it's due. We've been giving Democrats a hard time for their posture over the last several weeks. You know, we talked last episode about how it really just does not seem like that Democrats are up to the task of what is expected of them. And in a fight like this, where you can't stop the train from coming down the tracks if you're Democrats, right? Like Republicans have enough people to confirm Hegseth without a single Democratic vote. The best you can do is just put up a fight to go down swinging, as it were. And they absolutely did in this hearing. Every single Democrat on that committee bodied the living piss out of Pete Hegseth during this fucking...
Dude, Tammy Duckworth was not fucking around.
None of them were. Tim Kaine gets the MVP.
Yeah, he wasn't really playing. He was like, "Bitch, I told you I should have been the VP. Knock it off." Yeah. It's like, you know what? Okay. Look, Pete Hegseth is an interesting character, right? Because
he is interesting. Because here's in a sane world. Here is what Pete Hegseth should be. Pete Hegseth should be the candidate that Donald Trump sends out there to die. Like he should be sending Hegseth out there to take all the slings and arrows so that he can get through his other still batshit insane, but not outwardly batshit insane candidates through smoothly. And by comparison, even though like all the people that he's putting up are fucking repugnant and terrible next to Pete Hegseth, they're like, well, this is like fucking normal compared to Pete Hegseth. Like this is just a person whose policy we don't like. But I mean, at least he's not like an accused rapist, drunk, you know, financially mismanaging piece of shit like that's out there. So in a sane world, like Trump would nominate Pete Hegseth specifically to get him killed. Yeah.
But that's not where we are.
No,
that's not what's happening. No, this is his guy. This is his Xanadu. I mean, we've long said that if you're going to pick a scumbag, the rumored talk was that they were going to try to replace him when he was like teetering, where they thought, oh, okay, it's not going to happen. That Ron DeSantis was being considered. Which, again, if you've ever listened to the show, we hate Ron DeSantis. However, Ron DeSantis actually qualified for the job of Secretary of Defense. If you don't know, he was a JAG in the military. Like the guy, I mean, again,
has experience running a huge bureaucratic organization. Like, you know, it's
he would be, you know, again, I would not want him anywhere near any more levers of power. But as it goes, he's a far better choice and a smarter choice than Hegseth is. But Hegseth did something in this public whooping that should ring out the loudest to everybody, which is Hegseth would not say whether or not he would have authorized the shooting of protesters, because they asked a question that the former Secretary of Defense would not authorize the National Guard to shoot protesters during Trump's little fucking Bible bullshit that he did. And they asked Hegseth, if you were Secretary of State at the time, would you have authorized that or not? And he refused to answer.
Yeah. He also said
that would send a fucking cold chill down your spine.
Well, and they also asked him, like, if President Trump gave you an order, directed you to carry out an illegal order, would you do it? And his answer to that was, well, President Trump wouldn't ask me to carry out an illegal order. Like that was his dodge for that shit.
I feel like you haven't been paying attention, Pete. I'm like, here is my question. It is the $1 million question. What was it? $25,000 pyramid or whatever it was?
$64,000 pyramid.
$64,000.
Yeah.
Man, inflation. He is now saying, Trump is now saying, or not denying, that he is willing to use military might to go into Greenland and take Greenland.
Mm-hmm.
Greenland, obviously a part of NATO.
Well, as it is owned by Denmark, yes.
Denmark, yes. It's owned by Denmark. So it is a part of NATO. What happens when Trump says, I need you to get the military in there? Are the military... Okay, Pete Hegseth, yes, sir, no problem. I don't even know where Greenland is. Is that the one with the ice or not? I don't remember. This is a trick. I don't remember. Right? He's like, all right, let's go. I'm going into Reykjavik. Wrong country, Pete. Like, I'm going. So I don't doubt his response would be immediately, let's fucking do this. However, my question is, what does the top brass in the military do? And I know people would say, well, obviously they would just go into Greenland like fucking guns blazing. But you have to remember something. And it's not just because it's a part of NATO, which that's a big part of it, right? That's a massive part of it. But to be the top brass in the military means that you have allies outside of the U.S. These are your friends that you're willing to go. Are you willing to go to war over? And I'll tell you why we're doing the Greenland thing. I'm sure you know why, because it's fucking gross. But are you willing to go to war with your buddies in NATO over this? I have to wonder, and I don't know what the answer is. I'm not saying I know the military is AJ squared away. I don't know what the answer is. I'm interested to know what people think the answer is, because to me, that's the $64,000 question. Are we willing to go to war with the fucking rest of the world to do the bidding of billionaires? Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, and Bill Gates. And why do I name the three of them? Because those three assholes are the ones that have been doing exploratory digging in Greenland for fucking mineral, like these, these special minerals and resources, basically for phones and shit, right? And for electric cars, right? These precious metals. They have been doing this since 2022. They've been like, Greenland is the place where all of these things are, or they're pretty sure it is. That's why this conversation is coming up about that's why the Republicans are saying we need to strategically take over Greenland for America's, future. That's what the reason is. So are you going to send young men and women to take over this country to fight against our allies who have been our allies for, when was NATO created? Just after fucking World War II?
Yep.
We're going to have a fight with England and France and all our buddies. We're going to go to war with them. Canada. We're going to go to war with them for the financial benefit of those three assholes. And to me, I know Pete Hegseth goes, we got to do it because manifest destiny, which is a term I'm hearing lately, which is fucking insane to me. I know that he's going to be okay with that. What is the top military brass going to do? Are they just going to be like, we're not doing that? Because to me, that is worth going, we're not doing that. We're not doing that. We're not going to war with the rest of the world for these guys.
So to answer your question,
I don't know.
They'd probably resign. And then Trump would try to get in somebody who would go along with it, because that's what military people do. Instead of saying no, they usually are like, I quit, because I don't agree with that. I think it's cool.
I think that's likely. I think that's a disastrous
idea. I think it's cool that you're even looking outside the borders. I am much more concerned about inside the country. I don't think Pete Hegseth would necessarily say no if Trump was like, "Hey, deploy the military to to tamp down this protest." Not the National Guard, the fucking military.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with you. I don't disagree with you.
That would be my bigger concern. And aside from the fact that, and again, like there's so many reasons. Like I loved.
By the way, you're edging at that point. You're truly edging towards a full-scale civil war in this country, that country. You quite literally are. If you're like, we're deploying the U.S. military against protesters because it doesn't, to quote The Siege, right? Great movie. The U.S. military or the U.S. Army is not a fucking scalpel. It's a broadsword. It is not designed for that work. It's simply not on U.S. soil. Like, we're used to sending the military, all right, make sure those people aren't protesting. Yeah, because they're not on our team. We just kill them. We don't give a fuck. Like, and people go, oh, I don't know what happened, right? But it's different when you're doing that to kids on a college campus. That's different than when you're doing that to people protesting, for whatever reason. Women protesting their rights being taken away. It becomes a very different situation because that's your mom, that's your sister, that's your friends. Those are your countrymen. That's different. That's why in every military conflict, they go, oh, we got to give these people a nickname. We got to dehumanize them so we can just shoot them, without thinking about it. But that's different when it's American citizens. And and you're right. That is something people should be concerned about. I'm talking about Greenland just because that's a big thing in the news. But absolutely. And this is why this guy is fucking dangerous. He's super dangerous.
So that's the ideological reason that he's dangerous, right? There are other reasons that Pete Hegseth is grossly unqualified to be the Secretary of Defense. The first, he's a drunk, by all accounts. He is accused of having raped and then paid off somebody to cover up said rape, which he, by the way, keeps attributing to like, oh, these are just anonymous smears against me. It's like, well, they're anonymous to us because you made your accuser sign an NDA when you paid her off, but she's not anonymous to you, and she's not anonymous to the judge. Like if you were truly innocent, I would think that you would say, yeah, I'm going to release this person from their NDA and they can talk if they want to about this because I have nothing to hide. But, obviously he's not. No. He's not doing that. And then just from like a ability to do the job standpoint, like it came up in these hearings because of course it did. Like this dude was literally put in charge of 2 nonprofit like veterans organizations that were custom, like basically like jobs that were custom designed for him to step into, like basically like organizations that were created just so he could sit at the top of them, sort of thing.
Right. And
he ran them both into the ground.
Yeah.
This is a guy who, when he asked, because he was a National Guardsman as well, he requested to serve like to help at like January 6th or whatever, like protect like the Capitol and shit like that. Mm-hmm. And his own squad mates were like, yeah, it's not a good idea. Like the people that he fucking served with were just like, I don't think we should do that. Because they're worried about.
What was their justification?
Because the dude has a fucking Nazi adjacent tattoo on his fucking on his fucking arm.
No. But those are Christian Crusade tattoos.
Yeah,
those are.
Yeah. Right? I mean, they are. You're not wrong about that. So.
I mean, I don't know what you're making a big deal about. They're just tattoos about a religious war where we just murdered a bunch of people in a religion that we just happen to keep having conflict with. And now he has access to the largest military in the world. I'm sure it's fine.
Yeah. Sure it's fine. And I loved like so obviously like when it was Republicans' turn to question him, they had to bubble wrap around him because he was getting abused so hard by these mean Democrats that are sitting there in the committee. And Mark Wayne Mullen basically gave the like, hey, like, please stop defending me defense to Pete Hegseth, where he's like, who among us hasn't shown up for a vote in the Senate fucking wasted? You know, who among us hasn't had some youthful transgressions, he says, waving away an alleged sexual assault?
Did he say youthful transgression?
No, but that's basically he's like, oh, like we've all done stuff that we regret in our past.
Nah, bro, like
kind of sort
rape?
of.
No. What the fuck you mean we? Get out of here, Mark Wayne. No.
And by the way, like he's like, like what senator hasn't come to take a vote while blasted out of their fucking mind? Like, yeah, that's a problem actually, Mark Wayne. Like that's not something you say casually, like, no, like everyone knows that this is the one. Like, that's news to us. Like, would you like to share more details, perhaps? Clearly,
they need breathalyzers as you come into the dais. Like,
and afterwards, of course, like fucking, Mr. Happy Pill or Sleepy Pill, Ronnie Johnson went on like Fox News after the confirmation hearings and was like, yeah, liberal, like the Democrats are afraid of him because he's going to go into that. He's going to come in and blow it and, blow that organization up. The organization he's talking about is, of course, the U.S. military. Like, yeah, we are afraid that he's going to come in and fucking blow the military up. Like,
there was a quote of like, he's going to bring like that warrior mentality back to the U.S. military.
Oh, lethality came up a lot. He's like, we're going to get back to lethality. I was like, what the fuck is that supposed to mean? You mean we're not doing enough killing of people around the world?
Like, what? On what planet is the United States military not lethal enough? Are we shooting fucking fun time rainbows at our enemies? Because if we are, they're killing people with those. That's how good they are. Okay, like we don't fuck around. Like this weird right-wing idea that the military needs to be more violent and more brutal. And then they go, why do they hate us, bro? They hate us because they hate us. No, maybe it's because you're shooting kids, dude. Like, or you're funding the murder of children and innocent people. Maybe that's why. Maybe this idea that we need to be more lethal, more brutal, it's not good. And by the way, if you want to bring violence onto the shores of the United States in the form of more terrorism from those countries that you think you can just go over there and do whatever the fuck you want, your actions are a surefire way of doing that.
Yeah.
Again, not everybody needs to get radicalized or will be radicalized because they see their family members or friends being killed in those foreign countries. Not everybody will, obviously. However, not everyone who is radicalized lives in those foreign countries. Because people can watch shit going on and they live and be born and raised in the US, but be Muslim and go, what the fuck is happening? And you know how I know that? Because it literally just happened on January 1st. This guy was fucking former military, dude. Born and raised or at least raised in Texas very specifically.
I can't remember who said it. Somebody said it recently. Nobody does a better job of turning out training and turning out terrorists than the U.S. military.
Yeah,
because they literally give you the training to be a fucking killing machine and then do a lot of shit that could potentially piss you off for one reason or another.
Right. And not that every soldier is a terrorist, but yeah, to your point, yeah, they're given the tools that if they become radicalized, they're dangerous motherfuckers. Like that's one of the things like I do not understand, and maybe I'm too poor. I'm just too poor to understand it. But to me, like their talk of like we're gonna get rid of veteran benefits. I'm like, the people you train to kill, these are the people you're fucking with their money, dude. Up the benefits just so everyone's okay. Like, maybe try to make the VA run that much better so these people don't get pissed. Oh, don't worry about it. Okay, like and again, I don't feel like you're thinking this through.
And here's the insane thing, right? Despite the fact that you could make the argument that Pete Hegseth might like as far as people that got to a hearing, and even people that didn't get to a hearing, like Matt Gaetz, like say what you will about the fucking whole child like statutory rape side of things. Mm-hmm. The dude at least like was a lawyer or is a lawyer. So like you could at least make the argument that like a bank shot qualification for attorney general. He wasn't qualified, but like one could make a credible argument, right? Like,
wow, Brad here making an argument for Matt Gaetz to be Secretary of State.
Negative.
Pete
Hegseth is the worst nominee of Trump's that I can recall ever. Like last term or this term, including of all the people that he's
that have made it. That
have made it or are going to make it to a hearing. Until Kash Patel gets a hearing, then we have serious competition.
Oh, dude, Kash Patel is straight up crazy. Holy shit! That's the one I'm gonna like. Oh, I tune in to watch this shit. That dude's nuts, man.
So,
how many children's books did you write about Trump losing the election and
about King Trump losing the election?
King Trump,
yeah. So, but I say this about Hegseth to say, like, despite the fact that, like, Democrats put all his shit out there, and he did not look good defending it at all, because he didn't really have much of a defense for any of it. Despite all that, he's probably going to get confirmed. Joni Ernst was the biggest fear that Republicans had. She's a Republican. She's former military. She's a survival of sexual assault. She spoke out vociferously against Hegseth when he was announced. And she came out yesterday after the hearing, was like, yeah, he's got my vote. He's a yes for me. So chances are, and it's so fucking fascinating to have watched Republicans in the legislature, especially in the Senate, just capitulate to this guy. Like, typically especially with senators, not as much with House members because they have to run for election every cycle, but with senators, you got that longer term. It's a more it's like the fucking big kids table compared to the fucking rec room that the fucking house is, right? And you're literally
the saucer cooling the
and you have advise and consent powers. Like the executive branch has to kiss your ass to get their people confirmed. And most senators in the past have taken that responsibility and been like,
seriously?
Like, yeah, like you gotta convince me. Not just if it was from the opposite political party, from their own political party.
Right.
They like they're just like, hey, we are not a rubber stamp. And it's just been fascinating to watch how totally Trump has been able to just run roughshod over pretty much the entirety of the Senate caucus for Republicans, and some Democrats, as John Fetterman is slowly starting to find out,
or that we're finding out about.
Yeah, that we're finding about John Fetterman.
Here's the thing: fascism is incredibly appealing to a lot of people, and when I say appealing to a lot of people, I mean people who are mentally not that fucking strong. And I'm not saying like I don't want that to come off as like me being mean for mean's sake. I truly believe that because I do think you're mentally fucking weak, right? And I'm not saying it for a fact. I truly believe that. I think that people like John Fetterman, and not because he had a stroke, I think he is fucking mentally weak, and I think that he thinks that it is far easier to go along to get along because that is the way to move forward. This isn't some standard shit. And if you can't see it for what it is and what the dangers are and asking yourself these fucking questions, like we're talking about going into Greenland, having these domestic issues with Pete Hegseth and all this other stuff, these military conflicts that'll pop up, and the downstream effects of those things, it's because you're not a systemic thinker or you're a corrupt piece of shit. So there's only two options. So to me, those are two both very mentally weak things. It doesn't mean that this is going to be easy. It doesn't mean it's going to be impossible to fucking fight. But the reason you see people like your Mark Zuckerbergs, and we'll talk more about him, if this guy's knees could bend any further, they would be up his own ass. Okay? You see these guys bending the knees so quickly because they want to align themselves for money because they don't give a fuck about anybody else. But to me, that is also a mental weakness because people got to buy your product, dude. You cannot let the world be destroyed. Who's going to use your fucking Facebook bullshit? Who's going to use any of the meta shit when people don't have enough money to afford the internet access, right? When they don't have enough money to afford a computer that's functioning, or they don't have enough, they got to spend time working 3 jobs. They don't have time to be on your application. And then you go, what happened to our numbers? Yeah, bro, because everybody is in dire straits. When we're trading bottle caps to keep the fucking lights on, Facebook access is not going to be top priority.
Okay, that's the end of the free portion for this week's episode of Look Forward. Make sure you go to lookforwardshow.com/premium. Sign up for premium content. It's only $5 a month or $50 for the full year.